As tensions persist in Manipur, the central government is scheduled to engage in a second round of discussions with two umbrella groups of Kuki militant bodies. These talks fall within the framework of the ongoing suspension of the operations agreement. The Sioux agreement addresses the Kuki-Zo communities, call for the establishment of a separate administrative entity within Manipur. That's what they want. It's worth noting that in August 2008, 25 Kuki militant factions entered into an agreement known as the suspension of operations with both the central and Manipur state government. Sources tell us that the second round of talk will take place in New Delhi on August 17. The first round of discussion on the same issue was held on July 26, which was reported by a number of newspapers. Now, let me come straight to the point and ask my colleague Brijesh, do you think the talks with the Kuki militants is way forward when one half of the population wants the entire agreement to be done away with?
I think, the government is in a fix, and this talk may help, assuage the fears. But the reality is that, yes, the entire state administration, if you remember, the statement given by Assam chief, by Manipur chief minister, we clearly stated that, that the Sioux operation, Sioux groups are behind this violence, and this has been amplified by several meitei groups and all. So the government, if you look at the military side, the army and the Assam Rifles and all, they have very clearly said that the majority of the weapons which are with the Sioux groups are in under lock and key, and one of the key is with the Indian Army. So it has created a very strange kind of situation where one faction, the state administration and all, blame the Kuki militant group, saying that they are the one who is responsible for the kind of tension which is there in the state of Manipur. And the Sioux agreement should be declared null and void. But I think the government also knows, the central government also knows the ramification of walking out of the tripartite agreement which these militant groups have. So I think it's still a very complex situation.
It's a complex situation. Mr. Hauke, first to you, how do you see the conversation which is going to have, which will take place, which will be held on 17th?
Karthikeya, given the kind of conflict and the deep divide we have in Manipur, I think that the Kukis also deserve some sort of constitutional settlement, because as I gathered from they have been demanding, for instance, a union territory with a legislature with many provisions underneath. However, earlier the Kuki NP Manipur was saying that, looking into the kind of inflictions that has been placed upon the Kukis, they said that without a separate state, they will not settle for it. So there is a kind of hardening as the conflict continues, and hopefully, I think the government of India would discuss with them and try to look into the grievance of the Kukis, as well as other communities in the hills also, because the Naga talks has been hanging on for the last almost 30 years, and their grievance also needs to be looked into it. And it is only the center that has to take into all these accounts and formulate a kind of arrangement or a kind of settlement for all the communities, because all the communities, they claim that they have grievances, they have developmental lag, and this and that. So this has to be looked into, the kind of institutional lacking that hill areas have. For instance, there's no single university in the hill areas, or even a medical institute or any other institute of higher learning. And it is only recently that partial kind of inclusion had happened in the form of tribal university regional campus in Sadar Hills, or Chazanpur Medical College. So there needs to be a kind of arrangement that has to be made, whether it may be political or whether it may be institutional. It has to be done. And I hope on 17th of this month, this discussion would be fruitful, and the Kuki groups would be submitting their charter of demands in the form of union territory with the legislature. And we hope that the discussions would have certain outcome that would be beneficial to the marginalized communities. who are
Kumar,
agree for.
okay. Shanti Kumar ji, your thoughts on this? It's a very contested issue because 20 days ago, when we were having this conversation, people were riled up. They said, no, this agreement should be done away with. But, Centre is going to have a talk with them. They spoke with ITLF. It just goes on to show that Centre is not going to limit itself. Centre is not limiting itself to a particular group. It's trying to take a bipartisan approach. बात सबसे होगी. Sapam Saab. Mr. Sapam? Mr. Sapam? Can you unmute yourself? Prasanjit also joins me. Professor, doesn't it tell us that rhetoric is one thing, but real politics is another thing. In real politics, Centre seems to be talking to everyone. Their political leaders in Manipur might be taking a very different stand, that no talks and this and that, and 40 meitei MLAs taking a very different position. But Centre is talking to everyone.
Yes, ultimately it is the central government, as per our constitution, will determine how these cookies will crumble, actually. It's not really the local stakeholder alone, because Manipur has got national and international attention. And the kind of conflicts that have come in, that is something exceptional, and that has a very different kind of a security dimension. Security dimension not in terms of what is being stereotyped, but security dimension in terms of establishing a larger inter-ethnic harmony, which is absolutely necessary from an internal security point of view. External security point of view is very different. So from the internal security point of view, how we can find a common ground, how we can make one party understand the genuine grievances and the accumulated historical injustice meted to the other party, how we can remove the existing political asymmetry that happens between the hill and the valley, how we can address the issues about resettlement, non-refoulement of the victims, how we give justice to those who are violated. All those issues need to be discussed with a multi-stake kind of a situation, and Centre is following the right course in bringing everyone together. The second part is the role of the governance institutions. The financial institutions have to act in a manner that it is able to compensate for the losses that many of these internally displaced people have suffered. They have lost their homes. How do you give them back their homes in terms of what kind of compensation that you have to pay to them? Financial institutions have to play a major role for that. No one can sit idle now without giving them back the homes that have been burned down, razed, or brought down completely and made people homeless. People are not still having enough sense of security, the psychological and the social security. That requires another level of government institutions or governance institutions, along with civil society, NGOs, to take part, so that the kind of bad blood that is created, in terms of which we have seen a certain civil society group is calling for aggression on the other civil society members, which is unprecedented. It's unprecedented that Meitei women's group do not have a solidarity with Kuki women's group.
Correct.
Women's groups in Northeast historically have come on the table, and they have created a congenial atmosphere for larger peace talks. Now, Centre has to take that part also into account. If Centre is talking to everyone, it needs to talk to women's group. It needs to talk to Naga Mothers Association. It needs to talk to Kuki women's groups. It needs to talk to Meitei women's groups. And all these women's groups can be brought together. And it will really create a different sense of peace altogether in case of Manipur, which is absolutely needed at this point of time.
I think that's a very good.
So
I think that's a very good point,
Yeah.
Professor. that different apart from the stated groups, they need to talk to different groups, and I think the women groups had been in forefront, and Mera Paibis is not one group. A lot of people think that it's a one group, it's a group with different factions, and it's a it's a Mera Paibi is a word which connotes different type of action organized by women. Who doesn't remember the sort of protest they did against AFSPA, where they took off their clothes and said Indian Army rape us. This was the word they used,
Powerful picture.
and it shocked everyone. I mean to say, so Mera Paibis have a history, but then the sort of actions which have taken on ground is something I completely agree with the professor, in which women for two different ethnic communities, they stand against each other. There is no solidarity in context of gender,